Live from Pawtucket, it's a mad show. Welcome to the program, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, Stephen Buckner. Here tonight, flying solo. Unfortunately, Patrick can't be with us tonight, but we're going to go ahead and continue with the show. We got plenty of movies to talk about. We're right in the middle of summer movie season. There's been a lot of movies that have come out the last couple weeks, so there's plenty to talk about. Hopefully, I keep my mind on track and get through it in a coherent manner without having Patrick here to nudge me back into coherent thought. But the first movie I want to talk about is the one that I think I was looking forward to seeing the most this summer movie season, which is the new Star Wars movie, Mandalorian and Grogu, which is a feature version of the Mandalorian TV series that's run the last few years on Disney Plus. So I was looking very forward to this because anyone who watches the show with any sort of regularity knows that I am very much a big Star Wars geek, as is Patrick. So it's something we were both looking forward to. And so I didn't get my hopes up too high because, you don't want to be disappointed. And I wouldn't say that I was disappointed in the movie. I did actually enjoy it. It is a very good movie. It's got humor. It's got lots of action. It keeps going at a quick pace. But is it the best Star Wars movie? I would say no. It's not the worst Star Wars movie either. It's thoroughly enjoyable. The only reason I would say there's any tinge to me of disappointment has nothing to do with the movie itself, but with my own expectations. I think when a movie is a movie-length version of a TV series, the expectation for a lot of people is that it's going to be bigger and grander. There's been a lot of movies that have made the jump from the small screen to the big screen, and you think, it's going to be a bigger spectacle. It's going to have a greater budget. All these things, in every way, it's going to be bigger and better. And for a lot of TV series that made the jump to feature, that's been the case. Like with animated shows that became movies, like The Simpsons, Bob's Burgers, South Park, they all sort of took advantage of being on the big screen and having a budget and not having the constraints of being on television. But this TV show, The Mandalorian, is one that on TV was already a cinematic experience. I think it already had the budget or almost had the budget, or at least appeared to have the budget of a feature-length film. It definitely had the look of a Star Wars feature film. So in no way in watching the show did you ever feel like you're getting something lesser in terms of Star Wars, because it's always been excellent quality, the TV show. So the movie, here I am thinking it's going to be bigger and more epic, but the show was already epic to begin with. So the movie kind of felt like just another episode of the show, which is good because it's an excellent show for anyone who hasn't watched it. But I just somehow was hoping to be more than what the show was. And this is a movie that also kind of had an uphill battle, I think, in coming out and finding an audience, because it obviously has its core audience that watches the show on Disney Plus. And, the core audience of Star Wars fans. But I don't know that this being a feature-length version of a TV series, is it going to appeal to people that aren't familiar with the show, haven't watched the show? And I think actually it would. I think the things that I I sort of, not that I disliked, but was, or even disappointed, but the things that I'm talking about when I'm talking about it negatively, I think is something that's more of a positive for people that have never seen the show. They can go into it with no prior knowledge of who the characters are, what their backstories are, any of that. You can go into this movie and completely follow everything and enjoy the movie because it's very self-contained. It's a self-contained story. It doesn't really pick up any threads of the storylines that were in the TV series because for the most part, the TV series story threads were wrapped up in the finale of season 3. So this is very much self-contained. It doesn't even really have any of the supporting characters or recurring characters that have appeared on the TV show. Really, the only characters that are in it that were in the show are the Mandalorian and Grogu. It's got a new set of supporting characters. Some other characters that made sort of cameos in the show appear here in larger roles. Zeb, who is a character from the TV show Rebels. He had a cameo in this TV series. Here, he's got a larger part as a rebel pilot who assists the Mandalorian. And then the Anzelians, aliens, who are these tiny little aliens that are the same species as Babu Frik. If you've seen Babu Frik, who is in Star Wars, The Rise of Skywalker, which was the last Star Wars movie. He was a character in that movie. These aliens are the same type of aliens, and they talk just like him, which they kind of steal every scene they're in. They're very funny. They're a group of tiny little aliens who are mechanics who help out the Mandalorian. So anyway, the premise of the movie is that the Mandalorian and his sidekick Grogu are bounty hunters, or he's at least a bounty hunter, and Grogu is his apprentice. And he has started working exclusively for not the rebellion, what the rebellion has become, which is the New Republic. And he's working for them, helping them to hunt down imperial warlords who are still sort of wreaking havoc for the New Republic in various remote spots of the galaxy. So he sort of is helping them hunt these people down. So as part of his work for them, in order to get some intelligence on the location of one of these warlords they're looking for, they want the Mandalorian to help the Hutts. If you remember Jabba the Hutt from Return of the Jedi, these are other aliens, actually his cousins. They're called the twins. They have information on one of the warlords that the New Republic is looking for. So they're willing to provide this information to the Republic if the Mandalorian returns their nephew to him. And their nephew is Jabba the Hutt's son, Rhoda the Hutt. And anyone who may have watched the Clone Wars animated movie, which came out maybe a dozen years ago, or probably more than that now. He was a character in that. He was kind of central to the story in that, but he was a baby in that. Now he's a full-grown character, and he's working as a sort of an indentured servant / gladiator for this crime lord. So the Mandalorian has to try to rescue him, and that's where the story starts off. So it's pretty good. I kind of felt like one of the things about the Mandalorian TV show is that to me it felt very much like a Western. You know, the bounty hunters, a lot of desert locations, things like that. And Star Wars always has been very much influenced by Westerns. But this, the Mandalorian always seemed to be a little bit more of a spaghetti Western, influenced a little bit by the type of Westerns that Clint Eastwood was in the 60s and 70s. And I like that about the show. And the main theme music from the show, which is again used in this movie, has kind of that flair of something that would have been in like The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And But this movie kind of has a different tone. There's still a little bit of that Western edge to it, but there's also a little bit of film noir. Because, like I said, the character of Rhoda is sort of an indentured servant to a gangster, and the Hutts, the twins, are actually also gangsters as well. So there's a lot of this underground gangster stuff happening, and a large portion of it takes place in this kind of gritty city planet that gives off Blade Runner vibes, but also kind of film noir, neo-film noir, like 80s type of neo-film noir vibes. And the music sort of reflects that. It sounds less like spaghetti western and more like 80s synth music, which to me seemed, and I know people are complimenting it, they like the music, and it's not that it's bad music, but to me it feels very unlike Star Wars, which is nitpicking, honestly. But hearing the synth music, and you hear the synth music in a lot of stuff, like things where it makes sense, like Stranger Things, they use a lot of that synth type music. And other things have been inspired by Stranger Things doing that, and they're picking up on that. So it sort of now has spread to Star Wars. And you can't expect every movie and TV show and that Star Wars does, because they're making a lot more stuff now. You can't expect it all to sound like John Williams. Not every composer works in the same style as John Williams, but it's kind of hard when you're working in his shadow to do something maybe different, and you'll have people like me who are like, he's no John Williams. That's a minor critique. But I don't want to say that the movie as a whole feels like a film noir, because really, overall, I felt like the movie felt like a superhero movie. It's kind of like Star Wars' version of a Marvel superhero movie, where the Mandalorian is thrust into a lot of situations where he's facing like overwhelming numbers or overwhelming odds, and he sort of, comes through and takes on all challengers, all comers, and, succeeds in what he's doing. And it seems very much like a superhero type of thing to me. And I never got that vibe watching the show. So I guess that sort of answers what I was looking for in the beginning, is that I was looking for something bigger and more spectacular. And I would definitely say that the fight scenes with the Mandalorian, where he's involved in taking on, whether it be stormtroopers or gangsters or whatever, or monsters. There are a lot of Star Wars type monsters in this movie, which is definitely a nod to the past of the series. I guess in that aspect, it becomes sort of a superhero epic rather than a space cowboy epic. So it did pretty well its first weekend. This past weekend, which was its second weekend, it did get nudged out by a couple of horror movies, which are doing surprisingly well. But overall, I think it was made for a smaller budget than most of the main saga movies. So I think it'll do well. I think that Jon Favreau, who directed this, has hopes of making more Mandalorian Grogu movies. And I hope that he does, but I would like to see some of the aspects of the TV show brought back into this. And I get that they wanted to make this standalone to appeal to a wider audience, but now that maybe that they've found that audience, maybe they'll start expanding on it, because I would like to see more of the development of the relationship between the characters of the Mandalorian and Grogu. Grogu is, everyone knows him as Baby Yoda, people that don't really watch the show. Or even I call him Baby Yoda at times. But he's a very cute and funny character. But there's always been this strong emotional bond between those two characters in the show. And it's not explored that much in the show. He's in the movie, rather. He's just sort of there as a sidekick and sort of comic relief. He does, later in the movie, get his own little segment that sort of showcases him at the foreground. So that was kind of a welcome part of the movie, and that kind of changed the pace of the film, because like I said, it's very fast-paced, lots of action, and when it got to that portion of the movie, it did kind of just slow down, not in a bad way, not that you would get bored by it, but because it's focusing on his character rather than the Mandalorian, it sort of shifted in tone a little bit in that segment, and then it returned to the superhero-y space epic. So that's pretty much it for the Mandalorian. I recommend it. I enjoyed it. I would go see it again, truthfully. I think it's one thing that's interesting. I'm kind of curious to do this myself. Is that the Omni Theater up in Boston at the Museum of Science is actually showing it, and it's like I didn't know that they showed commercial movies. I've seen a lot of scientific educational movies there when visiting the Science Museum, but I don't know that I've ever seen a feature film there. And if you've ever seen a movie, or if you've never seen a movie there, it's an IMAX theater, but it's on a big curved dome. So you're almost kind of surrounded, not completely surrounded, but it curves around you, and it's, fills your field of vision. And that, I think, would be an interesting experience to watch the movie that way. I'm tempted to watch it again and go up there and see it there. So anyone who might want sort of a grander experience of watching the movie, that might be something to consider. So a couple more movies that I got to see this past weekend. The first is a new one that came out, The Breadwinner, with Nate Bargatze, who is a very successful comedian, if you don't know who he is. The last few years, he's sort of taken off like a rocket. He's probably currently the most successful comedian out there. I've seen some of his work. I wouldn't call myself a huge fan of his, but he is funny. I've seen him on Saturday Night Live. I've seen clips of his stand-up. I have watched, he hosts a game show on, I'm not sure which network it is, but I've seen some episodes of that. He's definitely not a good TV host. He's a little awkward in doing that, and he's not necessarily a great actor, but he is a funny comedian. So this movie is sort of him and I guess whoever is backing him trying to cash in on his popularity by having him star in, they keep referring to it as his first movie. So there's the threat of more of these to come. That's kind of mean. It's kind of just a bland movie. It was mildly funny is the way that I would put it. It looked kind of dumb in the commercials, and I only went to go see it because the movie that I really wanted to go see, it just didn't work out time-wise to go see that. So I ended up seeing this instead. It's funny. The premise of it is it's kind of like Mr. Mom from the 80s. His wife has, if you've seen the commercial, she comes up with this invention and brings it on Shark Tank. And they buy into her invention. So she's off overseas to oversee the development of her invention to be mass produced. So she has to be away from home for 2 weeks. So her husband, who played by Nate Bargatze, is sort of a guy who has been lackadaisical as a father and husband. He lets his wife take care of everything, and he just focuses on his job, which he's a car salesman. And now, having to deal with his kids, he's clueless. He doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't know how to cook. He doesn't know how to clean. He doesn't know how to do laundry. He doesn't know the kids' schedules. He's clueless. And that's part of his shtick in his stand-up act is that, he'll refer to himself as like a dumb guy or a dope. I don't know if he uses those words exactly, but that's his shtick, is that he doesn't know a whole lot about anything. So that's his shtick in the movie as well. And actually at the end of the movie, they show a bunch of clips from his stand-up act that actually inspired pieces of the movie. So you see his stand-up routine, and then they show how it sort of came to life in the movie. It's like I said, it's mildly funny. They tried to help prop him up because, like I said, and I think he probably admitted himself, he's not an actor. He's a comedian, and a lot of comedians do become excellent actors, but some of them, even though they're successful, no one is going to mistake them as being a great actor, like Jerry Seinfeld. Seinfeld's one of the best sitcoms to ever exist, but Jerry Seinfeld is not a good actor. But he's sort of in the same mold. And he's also sort of in the same mold as Jerry Seinfeld, is that he likes to, they brand him as being a clean comedian. And, he doesn't curse, he doesn't talk about drugs or sex or stuff like that. It's all about his family life. So he kind of bills himself as being the comedian for like the whole family. In this movie, I've seen him in interviews talking about how he wanted something that the whole family could go see at the theater. And that he differs a little bit from Jerry Seinfeld, where Jerry Seinfeld is not trying to be family friendly. He just believes that you don't need to go blue in order to be funny, which I gotta agree. Some comedians just use that as a shortcut to a laugh. And you got to give it to Jerry Seinfeld and to Nate Bargatze that they're both trying to be more creative in getting that laugh, working more for it rather than just, busting out a curse word and getting a chuckle, which is something a kid can do, But they do try, like I said, they do try to prop him up because he's not the world's best actor with some really good comedic talent. So you have Kumail Nanjiani as one of his co-workers. You have, there's like at least 3 people from Saturday Night Live in the movie in different parts. You have Will Forte as a train wreck of a roofer who's working on his house. You have Colin Jost, who currently is the co-host of Weekend Update on Saturday Night Live. He plays a fellow stay-at-home dad. And then you have another current writer on Saturday Night Live, Martin Herlihy, who is part of the Please Don't Destroy videos that they did of Saturday Night Live. He has a recurring part as a delivery app driver. So they help contribute to some of the laughs in the movie. So overall, it's enjoyable. Is it the best comedy I've seen in the theater in a long time? Not really, but it's enjoyable. It's mildly funny. I've seen much funnier things, and there are some movies coming out this summer because there's been a dearth of family-friendly movies. Thank you. I mean, really funny movies. But the last one I did go see, another comedy actually, was the Devil Wears Prada 2, which I was on the fence about going to see. I did see the original years ago, probably when it came out, and I don't know that I've seen it again since then. So I remember the broad strokes of the movie. I didn't remember a lot of the details, but I remember the characters. Stanley Tucci was one of the highlights of the first movie, and again, he is here as well. But you've got Meryl Streep, you've got Anne Hathaway, you've got Emily Blunt. They're all back reprising their characters, and it's all done very well. I would say it's on par with the first one. It hits a lot of the same broad strokes and beats that first movie did. And the storyline is more about print media dying, like magazines and newspapers. And that's really a strong part of the storyline of this movie, which makes it seem fresh, like a reason to make this movie now after all the years since the first one came out. It actually gives a good current storyline to it. And, it's well written, it's funny, not hysterically funny, but it's funny. I think the fans of the original movie will enjoy this one. So there's that. So one last thing I wanted to, well, not the very last thing. There's one more thing to get to, but one thing I did want to mention, anyone who's a fan of the movie musical Little Shop of Horrors, there is Theater by the Sea is doing a very excellent stage version of that this summer. I think it's only until like June 20th. I went to see it the other day. I was going to talk a little bit more about that in the movies that it's based on, but we're kind of running out of time, so there's no time for that. But I just want to throw that out there. So before we end the show, I just wanted to mention this. Part of the reason that Patrick is not here is that we've lost a member of our crew here. Pat's wife, Danielle, has been part of the show for the probably about 20 years, almost as long as Patrick has been here. She passed away about 2 weeks ago, right after our last show. It was very surprising. It took us, all of us who knew her here, by surprise, very young, to pass away. So she's been a part of our show for the last, like I said, 20 years. She's been directing the show for at least probably the last 10. She's, been a driving force for the show the last few years. Takes care of a lot of the stuff behind the scenes that you never see. She makes me and Pat look good on the show. And we were also very, very surprised, and we're all going to miss her very much. So I just wanted to give my condolences out, of course, to Pat, but to her family as well out there. I know they're all going to miss her. There was a large turnout at her wake, so you can see that, she was not just appreciated here by us, but she was loved by a great many people. She was a teacher. She was an instructor for, I think it was, I don't know if it was aerobics, but something like water aerobics, something along those lines. But she had a family that loved her very much. Pat obviously did. And we're just going to miss her. So we're going to end the show in her memory. And all of our thoughts are with Patrick and Danielle's family. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next time. Have a good night.